Good afternoon, Pastor T with you again, author of the book Stop Falling for the Okeydoke, How the Lie of Race Continues to Undermine Our Country. People are using Black Lives Matter a whole lot right now. People who have never uttered those words before. On the one hand, it might just be something that is fashionable and the latest thing for some. For others, it is a sign of awakening, and that people are finally buying a vowel and getting a clue and understanding that African Americans were not imagining things. It wasn't just in our head. We weren't just making it up. We weren't just too sensitive, but that the insults, the daily stress of being a brown-skinned person in America has literal effects on us, our health, our psyche, everything, all day, every day. And that's an experience that, unless you've lived it, you won't understand it. But at least people, after watching an officer, a former police officer, kneel on the neck of George Floyd for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, until he was all but dead, and then of course he subsequently died, that they saw something that they thought was unimaginable. It's like, I don't believe those things are happening in my country. But guess what? For African Americans, that was no surprise. As if we go all the way back to Rodney King, had it not been filmed, it would strictly have been a matter of he resisted arrest, and that would have been it. But because it was caught on camera, and I think it was Will Smith that said, a lot of this stuff isn't new, it's just being caught on camera, and that's true. But as far as Black Lives Matter, and of course when we say that, or some people say it, then people immediately want to respond reflexively, hey, all lives matter. And that's true. However, in the postscript to my book, I wrote this. A law professor, in response to an anonymous complaint from a student about a Black Lives Matter shirt worn to class, stated the following, quote, there is a difference between focus and exclusion. If something matters, this does not imply that nothing else does. Black Lives Matter is about focus, not exclusion, quote. And then I continue, in the same way that a focus on Jewish lives leading up to and during World War II would warrant a Jewish Lives Matter response, Black Lives Matter is appropriate and timely. In the same way that the mistreatment and deaths of thousands of Chinese working to build our transcontinental railway system in the 1800s would warrant a Chinese Lives Matter movement, Black Lives Matter is appropriate and timely. Without wanting to sound harsh, white people need to understand and accept that everything is not about you. There are over 7 billion people on the planet, and the majority of them are people of color. Everyone gets a turn when circumstances require it. And we need to understand, and I know it gets confusing for folks in the United States because you all, well, I won't say you all, there's some who feel like this is a white man's country. Actually, it was an indigenous man and woman's country until folks came from Europe and committed genocide and killed millions of Native Americans to the point where there are a small number of them remaining. But understand that on the planet Earth, out of 7.8 billion people, the people of the global majority are brown-skinned or beige or yellow people. That's just the way it is. Some black, most brown-skinned, or beige or yellow. Beige being an offshoot of brown, which makes sense since humanity was born and birthed and emanated from Africa and the Fertile Crescent anyway. So brown-skinned people, that should be no surprise. But understand that 9 out of every 10 people on this planet are people of color. So the fact that that they're not in the majority here in the United States or maybe in Australia, another country where indigenous populations were mistreated and moved off to the side, but as a people of a global majority is brown-skinned, beige, and yellow people, 9 out of every 10. That being the case, when people who were stolen from the shores of Africa and brought to the United States to do the hard work of nation building for people and to nurse your babies and rear your babies and do all of the manual labor to help build this country. For us now to say, 150 years after the end of official enslavement, that Black Lives Matter because people keep getting killed, that should not be a surprise, and in fact should be a wake-up call. And if people would stop being so fragile and in their feelings, they would understand why it's a problem and why that we have a whole wild black list that keeps growing more and more and more. Of course, we were familiar with driving while black. Talk to Philando Castile about that. Or reaching for your driver's license while back. Again, Philando Castile. Shopping while black. John Crawford III with a gun over his shoulder as he's on the phone with his fiance, does not hear anybody talking to him behind his back and gets shot in the back. Again, you got to shoot anybody in the back. How are they a threat to you if you're shooting them in the back? Shopping while black. And then the latest one. Come on, y'all. Bird watching while black. If there's ever an activity that's non-threatening to anybody, it should be bird watching. But the poor brother in Central Park in New York, that this woman comes, he asked her to control her dog. She's like, I'm going to call the police and tell them a black man's harassing me. Really? And that's why Governor Cuomo and his administration have just proposed a law that would make it a hate crime for people to make felonious race-based crime calls to the police, accusing black people of stuff that they're not doing. I get that. Thank you, Governor Cuomo. But again, that's okey-doke. It's nonsense. It's foolishness. But the whole wild black thing, breathing while back, talk to George Floyd or Eric Garner or any number of other people, barbecuing while black, that we have to deal with all of this stress just to do basic things that folks should be able to enjoy and do without stress or trial or assault or threat of death every day. And so I just want to leave you with this thought, and especially to my white cousins. And I say cousins because race is a social construct. It has no basis in science, that we are all 99.9% plus the same in terms at our genetic level, so that we get stuck on stupid on less than 0.1% of our DNA. But family, we're all cousins. We all come from the same tree. We all come from the same continent. Everybody on this planet is at base an African before you move, before your people, your ancestors moved to wherever they moved on this planet. But I need for my white cousins to understand that everything is not about you, that everything can't revolve around you. And why would it in a world where 9 out of every 10 people in the world are people of color? We're grateful and surprised to a certain degree at the amount of support and activity and advocacy that white people are now engaging in to support Black Lives Matter. The NFL even had to come around. I guess they looked around and saw their rosters, and it's like 3 out of every 4 guys on our teams are African American. If they decide they ain't playing, we have no league. Hello. Now you want to really finish the job, either get Colin Kaepernick back in the league as a quarterback, or make him the head of your community outreach office or something, so that it can be branded with some level of authenticity because he's doing it. Because what you all did really was raise his profile. The brother has so much influence and cachet around the world because of the oppression, the mistreatment, the blacklisting or whitelisting, being whiteballed, if you want to call it that he endured as a result of the NFL. Remember Muhammad Ali back in the 60s, and he ended up being a cultural icon all around the world. The same thing has happened now. But here's what I want to say, and then I'm done. White folks, this is a long doggone struggle. We've been brown all our lives. 401 years now on the shores of the Americas of the, quote, New World, and all our lives throughout history. We're glad that you finally woke up and are feeling compelled to become allies and join us in the struggle. We need you to stay woke, because it's not going to just because of a series of protests over the course of the next couple of weeks. That's not going to be enough. We need you on the battlefield all day, every day, until laws get changed, policing gets changed, the structure of institutional racism is torn down, and everyone in this country can truly be free. God bless you.